Welcome everyone. Assume everyone can hear me. Yeah? Okay, thank you. So my name is Anoup. I'm here from Microsoft, and we're going to talk about modern analytics and governance at scale. I'll say bear with me, because I've chosen a day where my voice is just about holding on. So if I get a bit raspy, I apologize. But what we wanted to do today is kind of cement the idea of how do we do more with less and achieve the scale that we need across pretty big foundational pillars of data foundation and governance. So Microsoft itself internally has been on this journey. We know it very well because we are an organization with vast amounts of silo data. And we've been on a journey, as you can see, developing products that we are using internally to help us meet the needs, right, of pretty much, I think, many people who'll be here, which is trying to break down data silos, trying to achieve frictionless data governance. And largely, the important thing about this is, I think, with the evolution of analytics that we've had today, quite a lot of this seems to reside with a few people in the organization. And what I mean by that is you tend to find, a central data office that can get established, and then suddenly that central data office must own all data, and that is across all of the clouds, whether that be M365, SharePoint, OneDrives, as well as our analytics platforms, data warehouses, and so on. Then it's the job of that central data office to enable the business units. But that data office is fairly newly established, so between the business units there's already a lot of, data champions, engineering advocates, there's sound practices already there, but you're trying to harmonize that across the organization. Now the real kicker that has come along is AI. I think we can all attest to that. And the reason why that is a kicker is because suddenly you've got this desperate urge from the business to want to leverage AI, and it's come from nowhere. So now the genie's out of the bottle, so then you're going to that central data office, you're going to your data owners, and you're saying, how can we bring AI into our business? How can we bring business value from, or achieve business value through AI with this data that we have? The interesting thing about that is we can kind of see two things happening. The central data office was established to bring data culture and achieve governance at scale across the business, potentially. But AI is also driving people to take data closer to where the AI systems are. So suddenly you're seeing even more duplication than there was before, and that could be across your data platforms, like I say, SharePoint, Excel, OneDrives, as well as your analytics platforms. So these are the problems that we've needed to solve, and we help organizations, I help public sector organizations with specifically. I think you've heard this today, and I think you would have heard it plenty of times before, but MIT research has actually put this together, where research has shown that actually achieving this data governance, achieving modern analytics at scale is 92% of culture, people, process, 8% technology. Now if you've heard this, I wouldn't be surprised, but if you haven't heard it, I think, again, you will hear it because of AI, right? So within Microsoft, what we have done is taken a lot of the learnings that we have done internally, that folds into our product development, and we have this idea of modern analytics, AI, and governance. And we kind of neatly package that up into an offering, which is accessible through partners, it's accessible through us. But if you actually have a look at our documentation set, there was a documentation set produced for cloud scale analytics. Then you can also have a look now at our Fabric adoption guides. So a lot of this thinking is really built into this, and this has come from our own experiences. So then if we go over to technology, this is that 8%. This is the key thing. And what we want to be able to do is take the concept of breaking down silos, taking the idea of governance, building data products, having better data ownership, dealing with that culture, people, process challenges, if you like, then we're looking at how does technology apply to solve some of these problems. So when we're talking about technology, you hear us an awful lot talking about building automation, we're talking about enabling people with AI or business users with AI. There's data engineering, there's platforms like Microsoft Fabric, Azure. So these are the technology that combines with that culture and that people process that we want to solve. And lastly, this is a partnership. That actually says Microsoft partnership, but for me this is a wider partnership than Microsoft, right? The partnership here stems from the relationship we have with our business users, our data analysts, our business analysts, our heads of unit, our heads of department, and filters right the way down through our technology, our data engineering teams, and our wider sort of technology ecosystem. Then you have partners which are Microsoft partners or us, but we're all working together in this partnership to kind of get to this point of modern analytics AI, governance at scale. So I'm going to talk a little bit more just in and around some of the themes here that we need to kind of break down and get through. So I think some of the talks that you've heard today and has been from us is around the idea of the enterprise data strategy. This is talking about really bringing the data-driven culture and creating an ecosystem of collaboration, and come to the ecosystem as we go on. But part of this requires organizational change. Part of it requires how we think differently about the work that we do, whether we're in technology or whether we're in the business. Then the idea is, okay, so some technology kind of feeding into this now. So we want to build composable solutions. So what we want to do in this environment, in this ecosystem, is establish enterprise data governance. So if we want to build analytics and AI capabilities and building reporting and deliver business insights, then part of that is having a real strong foundation in data management and data governance. Part of that is establishing your data domains and the data products within it. Then you've got technical architecture. So if you think of this right now, the first two is still tackling people process, but now we're finally getting technical architecture. And this is really seeding the foundations, if you like, of what we are going to need at the bottom of the platform. Now that could be Azure landing zones that are ready to deploy services, to connect services, to build services on top of. Then we have Azure Data Services, we have Microsoft Fabric. We also have a lot of IPs and accelerators. Many of them exist on our Microsoft GitHub repository that you can kind of take and adopt. But those accelerators demand, to get the best value out of them, having some of that foundation and some of that platform built. Then at the bottom you got in brackets, because we're a small part in this, we got Microsoft, and you've got partners that you work with or that we work with to facilitate. The reason why we're a small part, this is about the culture, the organization that you're in. And then lastly, we're kind of implementing then. So when we've got all of this, we've kind of set our stall out, we've identified tangible things that we want to do in our organization, and we start really pushing out at volume MVPs, use cases, practical applications of. So the compelling thing now is why. So if we think of the top 3 focuses for the business, so if you're to go away from here today, we need to give the business 3 reasons why. Here's a stab at 3. So the first common ask that we see is, how can we serve data analytics that meet the needs of each individual business unit and between business units? The second is the data leadership. Do we have it? If we do, and that could be CDO, CIO, how do we work with that? How do we work with to establish the data culture and start empowering people in the units, in the organization, to become data conscious? And data conscious is really important, because if we don't understand the data that we're working with, we don't understand the data that's driving our organization, then we're not really valuing that data within it. and we're also not going to take it further, right? We kind of take the data for granted. So the second is then really, okay, so we want all of that. Let's build a unified ecosystem that aligns the people and the process and the culture to this. And the last thing, which the business does love hearing, is efficiencies. But in efficiencies, we're not talking here about quick cost saving. We're not talking here about rationalization of services to one product or rationalization of licenses. It's much more beyond that. Yes, those are nice to have, but we're also talking about efficiencies in terms of how data is managed across the organization. So if you think about data pipelines, how can we automate that so more people can use data pipelines in the organization without us needing to busy up very busy data engineers, right? Have multiple data engineers working on specific sets of pipelines while the other business units are going begging. Right, so that's the idea of efficiency and automation that I'm talking about. So I'm just going to build out some of this ecosystem. So here you've got some domains which take it for granted. Your organization will have far deeper domains, could have subdomains. There is a place for all of that, but I'm just breaking it down very, very simply. So you've got these domains, and the idea is data is served up to these domains from a data hub, right? That today increasingly is a lakehouse, and that increasingly is having not a centralized lakehouse, but a federated lakehouse where each domain can be served data up to and work with data within. So then in the middle, you kind of got a little bit more around data fabric. So you got the idea of some of that automation. So you've got your data foundation, but this is actually how can we automate and how can we start looking at the ingestion work we're doing, the data transformation work we're doing, the security, the compliance, the governance, the cataloging. How do we build that almost like that barrier between our data hub and the business units to make sure that if we are working with data, first of all, we're doing it efficiently. We're able to empower the people within those units and across those units to leverage and access data. But fundamentally, we're also putting it in a well-rounded, governed ecosystem. Okay, so I think, I remember coming to Big Data London a couple of years ago. I was talking with my colleagues over there where data mesh landed, but we've had concepts of data fabric, we've had concepts of data hub, and Microsoft technology here isn't necessarily trying to prescribe in the strictest sense to any one thing. We're trying to facilitate the best values of those concepts into the way that you apply our technology. So there's a lot of fluidity here where these domains right here look like departments and feel like departments, but within a department you can have just a data domain, right? So there is a lot of flexibility here, but this is kind of like how we lay out data mesh, data fabric, and the idea of data hub. So where does this get us? So we build this ecosystem. You have your hub, you have your fabric, you have your mesh, and the idea is now we've got this data platform, we've got this data ecosystem, so we can start migrating, we can start modernizing, be that from Hadoop, be that from data warehouses or other data appliances that we have. We could start empowering people within the business who are our data champions, who are our data analysts, who are our business analysts. They are able to kind of request and onboard data. We have teams set up to kind of automate that engineering of that ingestion. We're suddenly able now across those domains, across those units to start processing real-time data and largely serve those insights. So each business domain now is able to tap into this ecosystem and achieve some of the machine learning, some of the AI, or some of the just simple unlocking some business insights. And the other thing I'll say is if we look at this top down, if we do this right with a people process culture, we can also start to target where this is happening as cottage industries today, where none of this data that the business is really driving from, super valuable data, is kind of bypassing, if you like, the fabric, the governance, right? It's bypassing our carefully amalgamated ecosystem simply because a business needs to get things done quickly, or the business needs something done and they are able to get it done through Excel. So this is where I'm going to start bringing it a little bit more to life, but very quickly, I think you've heard across our talk tracks today, but Microsoft Fabric is a SaaS product. It unifies that data ecosystem into a unified experience, right? So what we mean by that is you can have, be a different persona, a different user if you like. So that could be a data engineer, that could be a report producer or an insights or data analyst. You could be a data scientist. But the idea is this ecosystem provides you that data hub, provides you that data fabric, that governed lakehouse that can be federated out across workspaces, across domains. But in this SaaS platform, in practice, you've got all of the capabilities that you need to empower people in the business where they are, right? OneLake here really serves to facilitate data at that hub. So ideally, you are looking to ingest and onboard your data into that OneLake. Once it lands into that OneLake, there's a bunch of capabilities in there like shortcutting, like database mirroring, as well as pipelining data into it that can be leveraged by many. So if I drill down a bit deeper into OneLake, I'm also super conscious of time. So OneLake's given us the capability of having this data hub. So as I said, you've got the capabilities in there of shortcutting data into and across OneLake, across workspaces, across data storage within OneLake. You can also mirror databases or mirror data into OneLake. Now if you look, I talked about efficiencies and automation. If you consider there that you can shortcut data and you can mirror data into OneLake, that is a huge amount of automation right there that has been particularly challenging prior, because you would have had a lot of pipelining to bring data in, operational data into the system, but now you could almost shortcut that process, mirror the data in and start working from it there without having the intricate pipeline. I'm not saying that works for all use cases, but they're still pretty big in terms of trying to achieve some efficiencies. I just realized I need to click. So then Microsoft Purview fits into this. So Microsoft Purview is like the catalog of catalogs. A ton of new capability has just landed into Purview, which is going GA. And those change really is to bring the business side into data governance. And is incredible work and investment has gone in there really. So yes, you can have this enterprise data catalog, but that data catalog relates to business, relates to the data domains, relates to data products. I'd love to talk an awful lot more about that. You can find me on the stand to do that. But the idea is Microsoft Purview is governing your data in your OneLake, is governing your data in your M365 tenant. It's governing and applying information protection to your OneDrives. Purview is part of this story. And then I'm just going to drop in a really crucial moment here where the one thing that we don't want to do, so this is a people process culture thing. Some of that people process culture actually resides with our existing engineers. They might like the platforms that they are working with. They might like the technology that they're working with. They might have real sophisticated pipelines, many of them. They might have the skill set to get things done very quickly. We're not talking about disrupting that in anger, right? We're not talking about wholesale coming in, oh, here's another awesome technology, let's migrate everything into it. That just breeds friction, right? Friction that you don't really want between your technology teams, and then the business kind of gets frustrated. So within Fabric, we can look at how do you integrate, capability technology. So you can shortcut data from S3 You can leverage Azure Databricks and Microsoft Fabric together. You can integrate with tools like dbt, for example. So part of this ecosystem is enabling or connecting in data systems that are existing already in their silos. And this is what we're driving at and what we're going at. Okay, so how do we actually achieve this? So we have 3 pillars. So there's enterprise data governance, and this is what is establishing enterprise data governance is taking care of data management services like the data catalog, building that catalog with governed data products, making sure our assets are curated. There's metadata enrichment that you can do that enables a business to understand what that data is for, what it's used for. They can apply their business, how can I say, semantics over those assets, over those data products. So then we can also start really understanding what that data is being used for. And then if you think about it, you can quickly understand your data engineering work, what business value is it actually driving. And also you can see that across the business. So if one domain is doing something particularly well, serving a data product, all right, how do we take some learnings from that? You can kind of start to build that knowledge, if you like, across the organization. Naturally, through Purview, you can establish data lineage, so you can see the lineage of where your data is moving across, moving through. There is data quality, data measures, and some policy control in there. There's also the ability to have a data order service, almost like a data marketplace. The second pillar is the data management foundation. So here we're talking about actually establishing Fabric, OneLake, concepts like that, where you've got self-service access into that ecosystem that we're building. It's built with Lakehouse as the foundation, that open Delta Parquet Lakehouse. And that ecosystem is able to enable with, as friction-free as possible, data engineers, scientists, analysts to actually get value out of that data, to actually start working with data. And then lastly, the data domains and data products. And this bit I kind of leave to the business. I'm like, look, technology, we can take care of that. But you really need to understand as an organization, like what would we consider our data domains to be? What do we consider our data products to be? Let's establish some of that thinking. And the reason why this also is valuable is because you can start finding people out in the business who are data champions, who can kind of bring this home to the business, can kind of connect you to data engineering teams and collaborate. So I'm conscious of time. I'm getting through this. There's a lot of work here, and I don't mean to make light of this as well, so bear with me. So this is the kind of phased journey, if you like, where we look at starting with the foundational elements. So this is taking a real assessment of where we are today, what is the pain, what's the architectures, what's the skill sets that we have, how have we tried to fix some of our problems with business problems with data already, is that working, is it not working? Then it's about taking some of that assessment, and that's a deep assessment, but let's actually start building some MVPs around building that data foundation that I talked about. So you've got your domain zones as a template, you've got your data lake established, you deploying then your data governance, your governance layer, so you're building out your catalog, you're starting to register data sources into it, you're starting to basically understand, if you like, how that catalog might fill some of the needs that we have around governance. Also, as we land data and assets and we scan, we're also starting to classify data. We're starting to then quickly understand where our PII is, where our high-risk data is, if we don't understand that today. And that's sort of where this data discovery piece comes in as well into phase 1. So then over to phase 2 and phase 3. So phase 2 and phase 3, now this is where we really start taking so we've done our MVPs. Those 3 MVPs in phase 1 can be done in parallel. None of that needs to flow, one or another. But once we've done that, once we've completed that phase, into phase 2 and phase 3, we're looking at taking use cases through. 5, 10, 20, sometimes we work with customers taking hundreds of use cases through. But they're doing that because we have established this data foundation where we know we can work at pace with this use case development, and we are able to ingest data, we're able to have it cataloged, we're cataloging other data that we might not know about, so now we can start speeding up and start getting use cases out to production, start realizing that business value. And with 5 minutes left, I'm going to skirt super quick through Purview. So enterprise data governance, right? This is really enabled with time from the business and time from data champions that we have in the organization. If I look at the way I worked with Azure Purview in the past, that's almost like the technology team trying to fix and trying to understand how the business is using the data, and sometimes that doesn't work. We actually can't do this as a technology team. We need the business to invest in enterprise data governance. So they come into the enterprise data catalog, they establish the constructs, if you like, of data domains, of data products, or we work with them to establish what they might be. But from that get-go, we're defining our data owners, we're defining our business owners, we're kind of giving, if you like, accountability for this wider data ecosystem that we have. And bear with me. And yeah, so as I said, so once we kind of establish this, then we're onboarding data in, we're starting to scan and we're starting to classify data. So now we're able to kind of really embrace this idea of our organizational data, and this is how it relates to the business, and all of this money that we have spent in data engineering, in product, in data products, whilst before we might, from the business point of view, they might not see what the value of that is. If we do this right, they will, because they will relate data product A down to data assets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000, and the engineering work that goes behind it. And if we do this super well, then we can actually start building out a self-servicing data platform, data marketplace, and ordering system. That data ordering system can work between domains who were previously siloed. So there's actually an asset over here in one domain that is super valuable to another domain. They didn't know it existed, but now suddenly they do. And now suddenly we can request access to that data across those domains, but that is being, how can I say, access and policy is being managed in that transfer of data, or shortcut, if you like, through OneLake. And then in the 2 minutes I've got left, I'm going to talk about Fabric. Best conversation on the stand, I think. Fabric in itself is something else, but as a very far and wide-reaching. But the idea of Microsoft Fabric is servicing up this ecosystem. So you have got the idea of shortcuts to kind of bring data in, if that resides in other clouds, if that resides in other Azure storage accounts or Azure environments. You've got the idea of mirroring databases in SQL or Snowflake. So you got data landing into this data hub that runs through the entire organization. It's federated out and governed by the workspace, by the domain, but fundamentally it is there, it is accessible in the hub. Then we can start serving, we can engineer out that data, we can clean it, we can build the data models that we need to serve into our reports, but we are able to do that, and we're able to serve that data out to the domains. So I haven't got time for a demo. I am happy to show you a demo afterwards.
We've seen how every work.
And in the 1 minute that I've got left, I'm just going to talk about really the automation here. So yes, we've got the data ecosystem. Yes, we've got the data, the governance foundation. Some of that automation I was talking about is these IPs and these accelerators where we're building more agnostic ingestion capability. So the idea of that is we're able to build metadata-driven pipelines. So business users, you have a metadata pipeline catalog almost that has the details, if you like, of servers, databases, connections. Business users can tap into these pipelines, put in the information that they might need, and trigger a pipeline, and off it goes. That front end of that can actually be a power app, if you like. But this is part of the automation and the efficiencies that we're talking about. But if that data is in one lake and data is available, suddenly you can start achieving some of this metadata-driven pipeline with, again, a little bit less friction, because you're not having to work on all of the networking, all of the PaaS components just to make that pipeline run. So the idea of the agnostic or the metadata-driven pipelines becomes more of a reality. And this is where, conscious of time, we have our domains, we have our data products, we have our ecosystem, we have our data governance, we have, if you like, that ecosystem there. We've got a data exchange. We're able to explore data. We're able to query data. We're able to access and share data. Then we have AI, and we are now able to leverage that. So I'm being rushed off now, but I will leave you with that one slide of Microsoft Fabric, the ecosystem, the workspaces and the domains that you can have. And I would love to take questions. I'll be over at the stand and I can show you some of this in practice on the demos that I have. So I hope that was of value. Yep. Thank you.